right? The end of the Aleph, the beginning and base, right? Take a look and you'll see wherever it says Isha Elikim, he was with his Talmidim. When a Tzadik has Talmidim with him, he has that much more power. He's Isha Elikim. Filo the Moshe Isha Elikim. Moshe Rabbeinu had Kal Yishma. Right? Elisha Isha Elikim. When the Tzadikim have their Talmidim near them, then they have much greater power to be able to mitigate all of the grief that they have to do. That's why we have to go to Rabbi Nachman. Okay? Did we answer the question? Alright? So now, so we learned what Rabbi Nachman wants us to come to him for. Well, what's in it for me? What do I gain if I'm the guy that goes? Little guy, right? I'm the little guy. What am I gaining by going? You know, maybe the big guy is okay. They have what to receive. They can always receive. You say it every day in Shema. V'hoya in Shemoya tishma'u. Right? Chazal say, in Shemoya, if you listen till now, tishma'u, you'll be able to learn much more. You'll be able to get to a much higher level. Right? In Shemoya tishma'u. So these are the big guys. They've listened till now. They've gotten somewhere. What if I wasn't such a good guy? What if I wasn't so great and all that? I didn't get there that far. Right? Understand that if I go, I become a participant in what Rabbi Nachman's power is. No matter who I am, no matter what I am, in the early years when we started going to Uman, the early 90s, we were in shul, Friday night, it was like this year, Rosh Hashanah, Monday, Tuesday. And Friday night we were in shul and we were singing the Chodoidi. And it was a tremendous arousal. People were really into it. There was one guy with hair down to his waist, right? He was wearing a Dracula shirt. Big picture of Dracula on his shirt. He's walking up and down the aisles. And he was a druggie, naturally, whatever, from Los Angeles. Far out, man, far out. He's waving his head back and forth. The hair is going here, the hair is going there, right? With a Dracula shirt. Far out, man, far out. But he also contributed. He was a body that came to Rabbi Nachman. Rabbi Nachman was using too. Point is, the guy had some kind of hero tshuva, some kind of sort of tshuva. Zoya says, "Les ru'usa tova v'yasovit." There's not one good thought that ever goes lost. Not one good thought. So if you're there by Rabbi Nachman and you see people davening, the big guys, right? The big guys, they're davening, they're learning, they're getting into it. I don't feel that. So what? You will feel everything every moment of your life anyway? No. Right? So you have a chance to get something, to get a hisaurus, an arousal to Hashem, right? Even if it's a drop. Because that little bit will never, ever, ever go to waste. That's one. Now, let's do a little mathematical exercise. Is that okay?
If anything, this year is more important than many years.
Well?
So if anything, then this year is more important than many years.
Yeah, as we get closer to the Geula.
Less of an island, though. Also, there's less of an island because a lot of people are not coming, so that each one of us counts even more.
We'll get to that, right? Everyone counts, right? So let's see how much everyone counts. Let's do a little mathematical exercise. If you have, say to Yitzira, you have the Aleph phase with the building blocks of creation. Right? You have to wear in Shabbos, Aleph, whatever. Point is that the Aleph phase was the building blocks of creation. If you have two letters, Aleph and Beis, how many combinations can you make? Anyone? 2. Aleph and Beis, or Beis and Aleph. If you add a third letter to it, how many combinations do you get? 6. If you add a fourth, you get 24. Right? Every time you add a letter to the previous number, you multiply it by that letter. If you do 5, it's 120. Right? If you do 6, 720. If you do 7, it's 5,040. After that, I forgot the numbers. But you keep on adding. You have a calculator, right? You get home, your computer. The calculator can only take a certain amount of zeros at the end, and you can only do it maybe 10, 15 numbers. But a computer, you can probably do about 30 numbers. But if you take all the alphabets, all the combinations that you can make, right? Every time you add a letter, you add something, you multiply it by incredible amounts of numbers. You go into the hundreds of thousands, you go into the millions, into the billions, trillions, and so on. Rabbi Nachman teaches in lesson 8, the second part of the Kufim Moran. He says, the Avonim, the building blocks, are neshamas. Pasuk in Echa, Tishtapechna Avnei Kodesh Rosh Kol Chutzos. Avnei Kodesh were the Jewish souls. So the Avonim, the building blocks, are really the Jewish souls. Every time you add one soul to the combination of what you had beforehand, you're adding an innumerable amount of numbers. Congregation of Klal Yisrael. What's in it for me? This shul could hold how many people? 100? I don't know. 100 was the fire department number, only the X amount goes in. Right? The shul could hold only only an X amount of people. If you add one more, there's no room. You gotta push the guy in like another sardine in the can, whatever the case is. This building, Kibesi based Tefillah, my house that I'm building, right? The base Tefillah is built by what? By all the neshamas that come to serve Hashem, right? All these neshamas, if I add one more soul to the building expands enough to be able to take in that extra person too. The building of Kedusha. So that, when you Rav Nosson brings this, he explains it in detail. Point is that when you bring yourself, you add one more nefesh, one more body to the people who are coming to the Rebbe, you're adding hundreds of millions of billions of batim to Klal Yisrael. Rav Nosson, by the way, answers a different Gemara in Sotah. Gemara in Sotah says that you had this week's Parsha, Kisovos, right? You had the Rochos and the Klolos. So the Gemara in Sotah says each mitzvah had 4 parts to it. Lilmod, Ulalamed, Nishma, Velatzos. Okay? The Shua to observe the Torah was taken 3 times. In Sinai, the Ever Ayaden, and when they went to Har Evel and Har Grizim. Okay? So each one, Nilmoid, Ulalamed, Nishma, Velatzos, interacts with each other, so that 4 times 4 is 16. The Shul was taken in 3 different places, that's 48, right? Mathematical exercise, right? But then, how many people were involved taking that Shul? 600,000, right? So multiply 48 times 600,000. And there's a day in the Gemara that because every Jew is a guarantor for somebody else, so that there's 600,000 guarantors for each of the 600,000 Jews. 600,000 times 600,000 times 48, right? How much? How much is this? Now, Reb Nosson asked the question, okay, so we're guarantors for how many hundreds of millions of people? How is it ever possible to fulfill your part of the guarantee? How could you ever do that? But if you bring one person into Klal Yisrael to observe the Torah, right, the numbers are far greater than the amount of guarantors you need to fulfill the Torah. So by bringing yourself, you are absolving yourself from the responsibility of the other Jew. You are able to go forward in your life with your ability because you have brought an extra Jew into the fold. And that's me. I'm that extra Jew. Right? So that's part of the rectifications that you can get when you go to Rabbi Nachman in Rosh Hashanah. You become part of a much greater realm of Kedusha that never existed until now. And of course, I get my individual tikkun. Rabbi Nachman said, I can do for people in Rosh Hashanah what even I cannot do for them the whole year. I can do it on Rosh Hashanah because that's the beginning where we can mitigate all the things. So, the advantage of going to Uman Rosh Hashanah has an untold amount of advantages, an untold amount of blessings and brachos and whatnot. If there are any questions on this,
so just to answer his point of asking about the...
You'll have to speak a little louder. And
his point,
yeah.
Asking about the simple Jew that's not so connected to your Nachman. So, I mean, every Rebbe, the Belzer Rav has this Hasidim coming to him, the Chabad goes to Chabad. Yeah. If I'm not so connected to Reb Nachman, why would I choose Reb Nachman and not the Chabad? Why not?
Because Rabbi Nachman said, I know what Rosh Hashanah is all about. Nobody else said that.
So it's whether you trust him or not.
Yeah. It's up to you. Up to you, completely your choice. Do whatever you want, but if you understand that the Rabbi Nachman spoke about this, let's put it this way: there was someone named Reb Breslov, a student of Reb Nosson, and somebody challenged him a lot about Rabbi Nachman. Rabbi Nachman speaks in the Kutam Ran about the Tzadik Emes, the true Tzadik. Right? He mentions it all the time. He says, how do we know that Rabbi Nachman was the true Tzadik? He says, Paro was smarter than you. Because Yosef came to him with a solution, with a statement. This is what's going to happen. Paro said, "En chochem v'novan kamoicha, en novan v'chochem kamoicha." There's nobody like him. If he spoke about it, he probably knew what he was talking about. Nobody else said that, right? So why Rabbi Nachman? No, it's up to you. If you want to take a chance, have you ever taken a chance in your life? We all do, right? Take a chance, right? I don't know, maybe the Belzer Rebbe, maybe the Sapper Rebbe, maybe the Tov Zara, maybe the Lubavitcher, right? Maybe go to a Litvish yeshiva, right? They all go to their tzaddikim. A friend of mine was on the plane going to Uman, and there were a couple of guys from the Aguda who were going to, I think it was Breslov, which is in Belarus. And they asked him, what are you going to Rabbi Nachman for? What are you doing Rosh Hashanah? And they derided him for going to Uman Rosh Hashanah. They said, what are you guys doing? Well, we're going here to help bring a little Yiddishkeit to Lvov. Right? So you're also traveling away from your home and your family for something. Right? People do it. When I was in yeshiva, going back 60 years, right? You didn't have that. So people traveled to the yeshiva for Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. It was real, very real. Even the Hasidim, not all of them went to their Rebbe for Rosh Hashanah. It became more and more common the last 30 years, last 40 years, right? Years ago, it wasn't that common because it was very difficult. And the idea, the emunah, that the Tzadik can help you, I can really get a service from the davening in yeshiva or by the Rebbe, whatever it was, it's become more common. Today, there are many trips to Eastern Europe to go visit Kivrei Tzadikim. Now the Breslov has started that by going to Rebbe Nachman. Today it's commonplace. Everyone, next week I think it is, the Reb Chaim Kramer. Guaranteed there's a whole group of people traveling to Radin to be by the Reb Chaim next week. But where did they get it? Where did the idea come to them from? Right? Rebbe Nachman said, come to me, come to my grave. You don't find that much. Rebbe Elimelech said, anyone who comes to me, I'll do him a favor. And others said things like that. So nobody promised what Rebbe Nachman promised. I will take you out of Gehenna. I will take you out of Gehenna.
What's the shot that he was the only one?
He's the only one. You don't find any other tzaddik who made a promise like that. Right?
Why isn't that?
Now he's another what do you call it again? What do you call the guy? Another shyster? Nobody knows what he's talking about. Right? Up to you to believe whether he is or he isn't. He promised me. He promised me he will take me out of Gehenna. Right? A lot of Breslov Hasidim will tell you that not only in the world to come, but even here in this world. Because he's brought me different ideas that I don't have to go through the Gehenna, which is this world. I don't have to run after money. I don't have to run after immorality. I don't have to run after this or that. I can get rid of gaiva, right? Arrogance and haughtiness. I can immerse myself into anivas, humility. I can learn to control my... That's even in this world. You're getting rid of all the needless words. Even in this world. But it's a question if you believe he can do it, so you'll do it. If you don't believe it, you won't go.
If you have sveikus and you go anyway, will he do it for you?
Yeah, it's good.
As long as you go.
Maybe when you learn
in the lesson, excuse me, in the lesson where he speaks about the review button, the people that come and the extras and all that, he uses the pasuk Uval Yoima Shochen Cholisi, right? The Shochen, the guy who lives as a renter, right? He's renting an apartment. It's not his, right? Uval Yoima Shochen Cholisi Ha'oma Yoshev Bo Nesu Omen. The people that live there, right, are also forgiven for all their sins. Reb Nosson says, if you look carefully, you'll see that the Rebbe uses the word shochen, right? Somebody who lives b'shchenis, somebody who's a renter. He's not kavua. He's not there all the way in. He comes even once. Even once he comes to Uman, right? He's part of that greater bias, that greater shul, that greater synagogue. He's part of it. Even if you're not there even if you're not in there all the time. The Kal V'chomer, if you do it once or twice, right? I had a friend of mine, I got him to get to Uman, and he said, many years before he had davened in Miri Yeshiva in Brooklyn, he said it was Kavaldi, Yeheshmei Rabbah. There were 100 people, 150 people, 200 people, whatever. I mean, I went to Miri, so how many people were in the Beis Medrash? Then it wasn't like today. He said, I was in Uman, Rosh Hashanah. The shul had a few thousand people. You hear the Yeheshmei Rabbah from a few thousand people who are davening that way, right? It makes an impression on you. something you don't get to hear very often. Now you can go to Ger. The Ger Rebbe has many thousands when you go to the Delta Rebbe. But when you're involved in Breslov, you hear it. It means something, right? There's a passage. You have in the Son of Toikos, right? Shuvu, Silu, Soko, Mavir, Nisraya, Zera, right? Then you have a small piece, Shimcho, Tenti, Lesecha, Odom, Yisoidim, Meyofa, a person is brought from dust. So, our lives are short. Then we say, V'yatahu, Ushnoisecha, Lo Yitomu. You, Hashem, your years never end. You're never ending. You're infinite. And then the entire congregation breaks out into a song. If anyone was there, you heard it. Shimchono Lishmecha Aseh Aseh Leman Shemecha V'Kadei Shimcha V'Kadei Shemecha V'Kadei Shimcha V'Yodemecha. And then they say Keseh Yitnu Lecho Hashem Elokeinu. If you're attuned even a drop, you will feel that we together are picking up the crown and putting it on Hashem. It's an amazing feeling that, well, I never was anyplace else but in Breslov. But I don't think you'll ever get that feeling anyplace else. And we're part of it. We're part of the people that are putting the crown on Hashem. That Hashem is Melech HaKol HaOretz. And that's what Rosh Hashanah is all about. Look in the davening. Right? Everything is about Sim Lo Yichatu Hashem Elokeinu. Right? Everything is okay. Melech HaKol HaOretz. The Kaddish of Yom Melech HaKol. Everything is Melech. HaMelech HaKodesh. Everything is. You're getting to feel that Hashem is the actual Melech HaKol HaOretz. That's what you can get out of going to Uman Rosh Hashanah. Now, somebody, by the way, sent me like a WhatsApp, whatever, of a guy. I told my wife I'm going to Uman Rosh Hashanah, and she said, "Very nice. Just daven for a good shidduch." Right? So we know it's difficult. We know that it's not so easy on the wife, especially now when there's something called either a war or a military action, a limited military, one or the other. But everyone's scared. But the war is a few hundred miles away from Uman. Nothing has happened by Uman. And in fact, the last couple of days, Russia had a retreat. So, no problem. I was there 2 months ago, and it's quiet. So, problematic. How can you leave your wife and children to Rosh Hashanah? Well, first of all, Rosh Hashanah is a day of judgment. The other Yom Tovim, Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, okay, Samachta b'Chagecha, yeah, a wife and children, okay. Rosh Hashanah is not such a Yom Tov. You're on trial for nothing else, nothing less than your life. You're on trial for nothing less than your life and the life of your family and whatnot. So why not go and travel to the best defense attorney that you can get and utilize it and take advantage of it so that you can get the best year you could possibly get. Right? As we said earlier, it doesn't mean you won't have any consuming any challenges or frustrations during the year. It doesn't mean that. Sometimes you may find it's even harsher, it's more difficult, right? Because when you go up to heaven, right, in Lisa Lamoron, Shavisa Shevi. You went up to heaven and you brought down the Torah. But only after the Torah was brought down did they make the golden calf. Right? So sometimes when you accomplish a great Dover Shebekdusha, you'll find a lot of dubulim, problems. This lesson 65, we should teach them before they go, right? It says over here that when you go up and you bring down the Torah, so many times you have a lot of dubulim afterwards that you didn't have before, right? We'll find that in the lesson, right? Sometimes because you brought down something new, but you're a new person. That's why a new person has new challenges, right? But you have the tools, you were given the tools, Rosh Hashanah, to be able to overcome this challenge.
Once you're part of the kibbutz,
Once
you're part of the kibbutz, does it make any difference where you daven?
you're part of the kibbutz is to come to shul and daven.
Doesn't matter where?
Come and daven. Right? Doesn't matter. You're there in Uman with Rebbe Nachman. Right?
Is there any considerations that should be different this year because of the war, because of all the things they're
The
saying?
consideration that's different this year is the traffic. That's the only thing really
Just logistics.
problematic. Logistics. Right? Because you can't fly into Ukraine. Right? So you have to fly to neighboring countries. Poland, Hungary, Romania, Moldova, wherever it is. And from Moldova, closest place is 8-hour drive.
I'm saying, in terms of just like a responsible way of thinking about it, there is some elevated sakana, even if it's not as real as they're making it out.
Well, I don't know. You live in New York.
Yeah, okay, but there's
I
no...
live in Jerusalem. We have Arabs here, right? Chicago, how many people are killed every weekend? Right? They're shot, whatever. There's a sakana always. Even without war, Ukrainians are not the most friendly to the Jews. Right? I personally wish the Russians and the Ukrainians absolute success. Right? To the last minute. That's my feeling. Because I know to an extent how much Yiddish blood is buried, soaked into the land of Ukraine and Russia.
You feel that in the year when you go there. Hatred, you feel the hatred
Yeah.
as soon as you...
So that's even without it. So what's the difference? Right? Either there's Hashem who will watch over you, or there's Hashem who will watch over you.
Yeah, but there's a never. You can't go to the Makkah Sakana even if Hashem watches
If
over
the
you.
wall was next door to Uman, I wouldn't be sitting here talking. Right? If the wall was right next to him, I'm saying I wouldn't come here, I couldn't tell you to go. I don't even know if I would go. And I'm kind of a committed wrestler. Right? Oh Hashem, with the years of COVID, I'm there also. So Hashem. Point is that if it was a real sakana, I can never tell you to go. I don't see the sakana. I think the sakana more is leaving your wife and children. That's, I think, is the biggest sakana.
I got the best feeling I got that there's no sakana, that the traveling insurance was only $10. If it's only $10 to travel to Ukraine,
Yeah.
That's great.
It's good there's nobody to take
It's a fundraiser. They got billions of dollars.
That's the way to do
Every
it.
other day they're taking pictures with senators and with this and that. If it was so dangerous, they wouldn't be sitting out there taking pictures.
We asked
Little loud.
how to know that the Rebbe stands for his promise.
The Rebbe,
He asked the Rebbe promised, but how do you know that he has the power to promise or...
you don't know. You either believe or not.